The hall was silent. Every alien from the royal house stood still. The High Council stood tall in the center, their voices loud and clear. Kalari stood at the side, her hands cold, her heart shaking. Then it happened. The leader of the council spoke. Kalari, daughter of House Venner, you are chosen to form the bond with the human warrior. The words hit her like a blast of cold air. Her breath caught in her throat. People began whispering, some with shock, some with excitement. But Kalari couldn't hear anything anymore. Her ears were ringing, her legs weak. She thought this was a mistake, a joke, or a test. But no one laughed, and no one corrected it. The words were real. She was to mate with a human, her mind filled with terrible stories she had heard since childhood. Stories of humans wild, brutal, violent. They lived on a war-filled planet, full of chaos and blood. Kalari had seen pictures, heard reports, and read records. Humans had sharp teeth, strong muscles, and strange emotions. One moment they laughed. The next they destroyed cities. She had always hoped her bond would be with someone noble, someone kind, someone from her own people. Not this, not a beast from Earth. Her mother stepped forward and gave her a gentle smile. It is a great honor. Daughter, she whispered, to bond with the warrior who helped save our armies. Kalari didn't respond. She couldn't speak, not when her stomach was twisting with fear. The human's name was given Lance Reeve, a soldier, a commander, a hero in the human fleet. But all Kalari could think was how would he treat her? Would he grab her, force her, shout at her? Would he take her as if she were nothing but a reward? She spent the night in silence, locked in her room. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her silver hair fell around her shoulders, her golden eyes wide and afraid. Was she ready for this? Could she survive it? The next day, she was taken to the royal chamber again. There, an official handed her a small holo device. This is your mate's profile, he said. Study it before you travel. Kalari took it with shaking fingers. Her thumb pressed the screen, and the image appeared. Her breath paused. The man on the screen looked different, not the monster she imagined. He had short brown hair, deep green eyes, and a face that looked tired. There were scars on his cheek, but his eyes didn't look cruel. They looked sad, even gentle. She looked again, searching for signs of danger in his face, but she couldn't find them. Still, she told herself it was a trick. Anyone could wear a mask in a photo. He could still be hiding the beast inside. Kalari spent the next 3 days in training. She was taught human customs, what to expect on Earth, how to speak basic English, and how to submit without insult. Each lesson felt like a chain added to her body. She hated every word of it. She wasn't ready to be handed to someone she didn't know, especially not a human. The night before her departure, she sat alone by her window, staring at the moons above. The stars were quiet, but her heart wasn't. She held a small dagger in her hand, a gift from her grandmother. She wasn't sure if it was for protection or for ending her pain if things went too far. She whispered to the stars, "Please let him be kind." The next morning, her bags were packed. Her escort waited near the ship. Kalari took one last look at her home world, the blue trees, the tall towers, the glowing skies. Then she stepped into the ship. She didn't look back as the ship rose into the stars. She closed her eyes and held the holo device tight. Lance Reeve, the human warrior. Would he be the end of her, or something else? She didn't know. But soon she would meet him face to face, and her world would never be the same again. Asterisk, the cold metal floor of the human transport ship shook as it moved through space. Kalari sat alone in her private chamber. Wrapped in silence, her fingers traced the edge of her seat, while her eyes stared blankly at the wall. She didn't speak, didn't blink much, and barely moved. The journey felt like a trap she had walked into with open eyes but no choice. Her heart thudded like a war drum, and her mind kept building pictures, scary ones. She saw hands grabbing her, loud voices shouting at her, and a face full of anger. That's what she imagined humans were like. Rough, impatient, too powerful for someone like her. The guards outside her door were human soldiers. But even they stayed away from her. They watched her like she was glass, like she might break. Or maybe explode. She had not eaten much since the journey began. The food smelled strange, salty, sharp, nothing like home. She didn't trust it, just like she didn't trust the future waiting for her in the dim silence. She pulled out the small dagger she had hidden inside her travel bag. It was curved, with a smooth handle, light enough to hide under her sleeve. Her fingers gripped it, not because she planned to attack, but because it made her feel less weak. She whispered to herself, "If he tries to hurt me, I will not let him win." A soft chime sounded in the room. A calm human voice came through the speaker. "We are landing soon. Please prepare." Kalari stood up slowly, her legs feeling stiff and unsure. She walked to the mirror and looked at herself. Her long silver hair was braided tightly. Her ceremonial robe was still clean and perfect, but her eyes were tired, afraid, but also hiding a spark, something stronger than fear. She breathed deeply, 1 breath, 2, 3, and whispered, "I am still myself." The door opened with a hiss, and a female escort motioned for her to follow. Kalari walked through the metal hallway, her steps quiet, her dagger hidden, her thoughts louder than ever. They reached the docking bay, and she saw the human world for the first time through the glass. It was green and brown, cloudy and cold-looking, not like her home at all. She didn't know if she liked it or hated it, but she was here now, and there was no going back. The ship landed, and the ramp lowered. Kalari stepped out, the wind hitting her face with a strange smell, earth, smoke, something wild. A group of human soldiers stood in formation, but one figure stepped forward alone. He wasn't wearing armor, just simple black clothes and a long coat. Kalari froze. She didn't expect him to look like this. He wasn't tall like a monster, but strong-looking. His hair was messy, his face marked with scars, and his eyes were the same as in the picture, green. Quiet, sad. He walked closer, not rushing, not staring too hard, and then he spoke, his voice low, unsure, but not unkind. "You must be Kalari," he said. She didn't answer. She just nodded once. He smiled gently, and it wasn't a fake smile, not the kind that hides a knife. It was small, tired, maybe even nervous. "I'm Lance," he said. I know this is strange." Still, she said nothing, her hand brushing against her hidden dagger as a reminder. He didn't move any closer, just stood a few steps away, giving her space. "I didn't ask for this either," he added softly. "But I'll do my best not to make it worse." Kalari blinked, confused. That wasn't what she expected a brutal human to say. She followed him silently as he led her to the vehicle. He opened the door for her, then walked around to his side. Without looking back, inside, the silence was heavy, but not painful. She watched him drive, noticing how careful he was with everything. Even with his words, no demands, no orders, no anger. Just quiet glances and deep breaths. When they reached the small base where they would stay, he opened the door again and said, "You can have the bigger room." Kalari stepped out, her feet touching the strange soil. The building was small, made of hard metal, simple but clean. He walked ahead, letting her choose whether to follow. She stood there for a moment, the wind touching her face again. This was not what she feared, not yet. Still, fear didn't leave her. It just stepped aside for a moment. And in that moment, she wondered, who was this man really? Not the brutal beast her people warned her about, not a cold soldier, but something else, something she couldn't name yet. She walked inside slowly, her heart still guarded, but her dagger hand a little less tight. Tomorrow, she would speak to him, maybe, but tonight, she would watch, listen, and try to understand the human she had been forced to fear. Because already, he didn't feel like the monster she had imagined. He felt like a puzzle, and Kalari had never liked puzzles. But this one, she couldn't look away from. Kalari didn't sleep that night. She lay on the wide human bed, staring at the strange ceiling above her. It was too quiet, too still. Back home, She always heard the gentle hum of the crystal lights or the soft songs of air creatures flying outside. Her window here, there was only silence, and the soft ticking of the heater on the wall. She had taken off her robes but kept the dagger close under her pillow. Just in case, her thoughts ran wild like fire through dry grass. Why was he being so calm? Why didn't he try anything? Didn't even look at her for more than a second. Was he trying to make her lower her guard? Was he waiting for the right moment to show what kind of creature he really was? Or was he truly different from what she had been told? Just before sleep almost touched her eyes, she heard something. A soft sound from the next room, almost like crying. She sat up quickly, her heart jumping. Holding the dagger tight, she walked to the door quietly and pressed her ear to the cold metal. The sound was real. A low breath, a voice shaking. She pushed the door open just a little, and there he was, Lance, the human, sitting on the edge of his bed, shirt off, head in his hands. There were scars on his back, deep and old. She could see his body trembling. And then she heard his voice, broken and small. "I'm sorry, Elia." "I'm so sorry," he whispered. Kalari froze. Who was Elia? A lover? A sister? Someone he lost? She didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched. There was no one else in the room. Only him and his pain, and somehow it didn't feel like acting. Felt real, too real. That night, she didn't go back to bed right away. She sat on the floor of her room with her knees pulled close and stared at the wall. The dagger was still in her hand, but her grip had softened. Maybe he wasn't hiding a beast under his skin. Maybe he was hiding wounds. The next morning, Lance knocked gently on her door and waited. Kalari opened it slowly, her face calm but her thoughts loud. "I brought some food," he said, holding a tray. "You don't have to eat it, but it's here." She looked at the tray: warm bread, fruit slices, and some kind of tea. Her nose twitched. The smell wasn't bad, just different. She took it without a word and nodded once. Lance didn't stay, didn't speak more. He simply turned and walked away. She sat by the small window and ate slowly, eyes watching the human sky. Hours passed, and they didn't see much of each other. But when evening came, he appeared at her door again, holding a small book. "I thought maybe you'd like to read about Earth," he said, offering it carefully. She didn't take it at first, but after a moment, she reached out and touched the book. It was soft, well used, and smelled like paper and ink. Their fingers didn't touch, but something strange passed between them. Not heat, not fear, just quiet. That night, she opened the book and flipped through the pages. There were pictures of rivers, animals, cities, and skies. She found a photo of a human child feeding a dog. It made her blink, not because it was odd, but because it felt normal, like something from her own world. Could humans really be like this? She looked at the wall between their rooms and whispered softly, "Who are you really, Lance Reeve?" The next day, something changed. He knocked again, this time with a box of paints and brushes. "I saw you had art supplies in your travel bag," he said. "Thought maybe you'd like some new ones." Kalari stared at him, confused. Why did he notice that? Why did he care? He didn't wait for her answer, just left the box on the table and walked away. Later, she picked up a brush and touched it to the blank page. Without thinking, she began to draw. Lines turned into shapes, colors into feeling, and before long, she had painted something she couldn't explain. A pair of green eyes staring through storm clouds. That night, she didn't hold her dagger. She held the book and slept with a little less fear. Because maybe, just maybe, the monster she had been warned about never existed, and the human sleeping in the next room wasn't what she expected at all. He was something else, something she didn't understand but wanted to. And that desire, that tiny spark of curiosity, was the most dangerous feeling of all. The storm came without warning. Winds howled outside the small base, shaking the walls like a beast clawing to get in. Kalari stood near the window, watching the sky turn dark. Clouds spun like angry spirits, and flashes of blue lightning cracked the sky open. She had never seen weather like this before, not on her home world. It was wild, untamed, and oddly beautiful behind her. Lance moved around the room, placing extra seals on the door and checking the backup power. "You okay?" he asked gently, not turning around. Kalari nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see it. She didn't want to admit it, but she wasn't scared, not of the storm, at least. This was the first time they had been alone in the same room for so long. No guards, no watchers, just the sound of wind and two breathing hearts. The lights flickered and dimmed, and Lance sighed. "Figures," he muttered. "The backup cells might not hold long." She tilted her head, watching him as he lit a small lantern with a flame stick. The soft orange glow filled the space with a strange warmth. Outside, thunder roared like a living creature, but inside, it felt almost safe. He sat down on the floor and leaned against the wall, looking tired but calm. "You don't have to stand like a statue," he said quietly. "I don't bite." Kalari hesitated, then slowly walked to the center of the room and sat down. They didn't speak for a while, only the storm spoke. After what felt like forever, Lance spoke again, his voice softer than before. "I used to be scared of storms," he said, eyes half closed. "When I was a kid, I'd hide in a box." Kalari blinked, surprised. He hid in a box. This human warrior, this feared soldier, was once a boy afraid of thunder. "Do humans fear many things?" she asked, her voice low, uncertain. Lance smiled faintly. "We fear everything," he said. "But we keep going anyway." She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time she didn't see a warrior. She saw a man. Tired and scarred, but alive. "I was told your kind have no control," she said. "That you destroy what you touch." He laughed, but not with joy. "Some do," he replied, "but not all of us." "Do you wish to control me?" she asked. Suddenly, her words sharp and honest. Lance's smile faded, and his eyes turned serious. "No," he said. "I don't want to control anyone." "Then what do you want from me?" she asked, her hands tight in her lap. He didn't answer right away. Then he whispered, "I want you to feel safe." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Outside, the rain began to pour, hitting the roof like drums in the night. Kalari slowly relaxed her shoulders, realizing how tense she had been all this time. Lance leaned his head back and stared at the ceiling. "I lost someone," he said, "before the war ended." "Elia," Kalari said softly, remembering the name. "He cried in his sleep." He looked at her, surprised, then nodded slowly. "She was my sister," he said. "She was brave like you." Kalari's lips parted slightly, touched by the truth in his voice. They sat there in the glow of the small flame, the storm fading little by little outside, and something changed between them. It wasn't spoken, it wasn't forced, it was just there, an invisible thread pulling their hearts a little closer. Later that night, as they watched the stars peek out through the clearing clouds, Kalari said something she never thought she would. "Your eyes are not violent," she whispered. "They are full of sorrow." Lance turned to her slowly, unsure how to reply, but he didn't need to, because when their eyes met, words were no longer required. Kalari stood and walked back to her room, her steps lighter than before. She didn't hold her dagger that night. She placed it back in her bag, quietly, and for the first time, she wondered not what the human would do to her, but what they could become together. Neither of them knew that far above their heads, a hidden drone was watching every moment, recording every word, every glance, and someone deep within the shadows of the Galactic Alliance was not pleased. The message arrived just before sunrise. It came in the form of a cold knock on the front door. Kalari opened her eyes slowly, feeling something wrong in the air. She sat up, unsure if the sound was part of a dream. Then she heard it again, 3 hard knocks, too sharp to ignore. She slipped on her robe and stepped into the hallway. Lance was already at the door, holding a pulse blade in one hand. His other hand was steady, but his jaw was tight. When the door opened, a tall alien woman stood outside, dressed in silver armor and glowing with authority. Kalari knew her at once, Council Enforcer Tirana, a voice from home, but not one of comfort. "You're summoned," Tirana said firmly. Eyes locked on Kalari. "No warning?" Lance asked calmly. "No request?" "It's not a request," Tirana replied. "She has grown too close to you." "Human." Kalari felt her throat tighten. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice cold. Tirana's eyes narrowed. "It means you forgot your place." Without another word, she turned and walked back toward her ship. Kalari stood frozen for a second, then looked at Lance. He didn't say anything, but she could see it in his eyes. He was ready to fight if she asked him to, but she didn't. She followed Tirana in silence, her mind a storm of thoughts. The ride back to the alien outpost was short, but her heart felt heavier with every mile. They placed her in a small chamber with crystal walls, glowing softly like they were judging her. Then came the questions. How close did you get to him? Did he touch you? Have you performed the ritual? Kalari answered none of them. She sat still, her face blank, her mind spinning with one question: why now? They didn't care before, so why take her back now? She didn't need to wait long for the answer. Council Matron Zara appeared, her face like stone. "You were never supposed to enjoy this," she said. "You were meant to obey, not feel." Kalari stood slowly, her voice calm but strong. "He showed me more kindness than any of you." Zara's eyes flashed with anger. "You disgrace your blood." Kalari stepped closer, no longer afraid. "Then maybe my blood needs changing." Meanwhile, back at the human base, Lance paced like a caged animal. He had received no word. No update, nothing. His orders had always been clear: form the bond, complete the ritual, and keep peace between species. But no one told him what to do if feelings became real. He opened his drawer and stared at the photo of his sister. "Am I doing the right thing?" he whispered. Then he made a decision. He wasn't going to sit and wait. He geared up, took a small transport shuttle, and flew straight toward the alien zone. He didn't have permission, didn't ask for help. He just knew one thing: he couldn't leave her alone. Not now. At the gate of the alien outpost, soldiers blocked his way. "I'm here for Kalari," he said, voice firm. "She's under council control," the guard replied. "You have no authority here." Lance stared at him, then simply said, "Then tell them this: if they want peace, they'd better hear me out." Inside the chamber, Kalari was just about to be moved to a secure location. Then a siren rang, and a message flashed across the crystal walls. "Human male requesting public address." The guards frowned, confused. But the council allowed it, out of curiosity or pride. The screen lit up, and there he was, standing tall under the alien sky. He didn't shout, didn't beg. He looked straight into the camera and said, "I don't care about orders anymore. I don't care what your rules say. I didn't fall in love because someone told me to. I did because she's brave, kind, and stronger than any of you see." Kalari's hands were shaking, not with fear, but with something else. Hope. "She's not your tool, and I'm not your beast," Lance continued. "If she still wants me, I'll wait. If not, I'll walk away." Silence fell over the chamber. Even the council didn't know what to say. Then, slowly, Kalari turned to the guards, her voice clear and steady. "Let me go," she said. "I will decide what I want. For the first time." Her voice didn't tremble, because for the first time, her heart was finally sure, and outside those cold walls, Lance waited, not as a warrior, not as a mate, but as a man willing to stay or walk, all for the choice she alone would make. The guards didn't know what to do when Kalari walked right past them. She didn't run, didn't look back, didn't even flinch. She just walked, like a queen leaving behind a burning palace. Every step echoed in the quiet halls, louder than any weapon. No one dared stop her, not after what the human had said. Not after the look in her eyes. Outside, the cold air touched her skin. And there he was. Lance stood under the sky, Face calm, heart loud. He didn't smile, didn't move, just watched her like she was the only real thing in the world. She stopped a few steps away, and for a long moment, they said nothing. Then she whispered, "You came for me." He nodded once. "I told you I would wait." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of words they didn't know how to speak yet. Kalari reached up slowly and touched his face. He didn't move, didn't even breathe. Her fingers brushed the old scar on his cheek. Soft and light. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she said, voice shaking just a little. "You never had to be," he replied, eyes locked on hers. But that moment didn't last, because far above, in the hidden ships of the Council's watchers, orders had already been given. The bond between human and alien had grown too strong, too public, too dangerous. A small group of armed enforcers was already moving through the trees, silent and fast. They weren't coming to talk. They were coming to end it. Back on the ground, Lance suddenly turned his head, sensing something. He didn't say a word, just grabbed Kalari's hand and pulled her behind cover. Within seconds, the first shot ripped through the air where she had been standing. Kalari gasped, her body pressed against the hard rock, heart racing. "They're here," Lance said, eyes scanning the trees. "Who?" she asked, confused. "People who hate change," he muttered. "People afraid of love." Another blast hit the ground, throwing dust into the air. Lance pulled out his sidearm and returned fire. Not to kill, just to push them back. Kalari crouched low, her hands shaking, but her eyes full of fire. "I can help," she said, pulling out her dagger. Lance gave her a quick look. "No," he said. "You don't need to fight." "Yes, I do," she replied. "If I don't fight for you now, I'll never forgive myself." They moved together, two bodies against the shadow of power. She moved with speed. He moved with precision. The attackers didn't expect resistance, and that made them weak. One by one, they fell back, retreating into the forest. Then came the final voice from above, speaking through a large ship speaker. "This union is forbidden." The voice said coldly, "Stand down or be erased." Lance stepped forward, gun lowered, voice raised. "We don't need your approval," he shouted. Kalari stood beside him, face glowing with courage. "You taught us to obey," she said. "But we learned how to choose." The ship hovered for a moment, silent, then slowly, it turned and flew away, disappearing into the clouds. They didn't win a war that day. But they didn't lose themselves either. As the sun broke through the gray sky, Lance and Kalari sat on the hill, shoulder to shoulder. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The worst had come, and they had faced it together. Now all that was left was the truth, that no force, no council, no ancient rule could control what grew between them. It was no longer fear, no longer duty. It was real. And the only thing left now was for her to decide what came next. The wind was gentle now. The storm had passed. The enemies were gone. But Kalari's heart still beat like a drum inside her chest. She stood at the edge of the cliff, looking out at the twin suns rising together. Light touched the land slowly, like a blessing. Behind her, Lance waited, standing in silence, not rushing her, not saying a word. He didn't ask her to stay, didn't ask for her love. He had given her something no one else ever had: freedom. Freedom to choose. She remembered the faces of the council, the anger in their voices, the fear in their eyes. They had called her disobedient, a traitor, a disgrace. But none of their words mattered now. What mattered was how he had looked at her. When the sky was falling, not like she was a burden, not like a duty, but like she was someone worth protecting, even if it meant losing everything. Kalari turned to face him. Her voice was soft but strong. "Do you still mean what you said?" Lance nodded slowly. "Every word. I can return to my people," she said. "They will punish me, try to erase this bond. You're free to go," he said. "I won't stop you." She stepped closer, her eyes filled with something new, not fear, not doubt, but warmth. "I don't want to return," she said. He blinked, unsure if he heard her right. She smiled slightly, the first real smile she had ever given him. "I want to build something here," she said, "with you." A quiet breath escaped his lips, full of emotion. "Then we start fresh," he said. "No rules, no councils, just us." She took his hand gently, no fear left in her touch. "Just us," she whispered. Days turned into weeks, and news of what happened spread across both worlds. Some called it betrayal, others called it a miracle, but many others, young and old, began to ask questions. Why must bonds be forced? Why must love be controlled? For the first time in years, people questioned what they had always obeyed, and in that small corner of the galaxy, a new story began. Kalari and Lance built a life not from duty, but from choice. She grew flowers from alien soil. He taught her how to laugh again. They shared stories, meals, and moments no council could measure. One morning, Kalari sat by the window, painting the sunrise. Lance brought her tea and kissed her shoulder gently. "Still not brutal?" she teased, smiling. He laughed. "Still not terrified?" She shook her head. "Only of losing you." He leaned down and whispered, "Then you never will." Outside, the sun rose higher, lighting a world that had changed quietly, not because of war, not because of weapons, but because one alien girl dared to look past the stories, and one human man dared to wait without asking for anything in return. And together, they created something stronger than fear, stronger than bloodlines, stronger than rules. They created love, and this time, it belonged to them alone.